Okay. So 21. Yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktah shraddhaya architum ichhati tasya tasya chalam shraddham tameva vidadhamyaham. So in the previous one, he was explaining about who are the people who come to me, who are the people who don't come to me. Right? Krishna was saying there are four types of people who come to me, there are four types of people who don't get drawn to me. Drawn to me in this context means drawn to any kind of spiritual engagement, any kind of inner exploration, any kind of trying to understand the self, trying to understand Paramatma, trying to understand what is this principle that is in motion, in operation beyond the material world that we see. So there are people who don't engage in this exploration at all, don't engage in investigating time to look at these things, because a lot of times these things don't yield you the daily desires of your life, right? As you've discussed, any amount of exploration in this direction will not yield you the desires that you're looking for in a transactional world. It will raise you about the transactional world. That's a very beautiful result. But the problem is, a lot of times we don't want to raise ourselves. We still want to operate in the transactional world, and we still want to see the benefits and the advantages. How much can I suck out of this world? There is one study, there's this whole carbon footprint study that goes on, right? Those who are familiar with this. Carbon footprint means how much carbon does an individual consume? How much carbon does an individual consume? Because we consume it through different methods. Food is one thing that we consume directly, but then there is clothing, there is house, there is your vehicle, the transportation, all of that. How much carbon does one consume? There is a study. And if you're typically in a city, in a particular city, in a particular country, there is also a study to show how much carbon footprint that a typical individual consumes, even if you're living very simply. But if you are living in, say, a city like Bombay or New York, the amount that you're consuming is very high, right? And a lot of times, even the transportation for the food to come to your table is also calculated with that. Like, for example, if I ask for avocado, right? Somebody says avocado is very good for health. Avocado is not locally grown, it gets imported from somewhere. It's extremely good cholesterol. It gets imported from somewhere. So the whole process and um, the amount of fuel and amount of carbon that we consume, amount of material that we consume to transport avocado to my table is a lot, as compared to plucking a karvepalai from my garden. Suppose I grow tomatoes and chilies and curry leaves in my garden. To make a takali chutney, there is almost zero consumption of. That's only you're only consuming that much. But if you're importing avocado from somewhere, there's so much of so many people involved and so much of transport involved, so much of fuel is involved, all of that. So there is a way to calculate this. Now, what happens is there's a study to say if an individual consumes as much as an average American consumes, okay? If every 8.4 billion people on the earth consume as much as an average American consumes, it's a study that I read several years ago, we will need 14 earths. There's one earth we have. If everybody consumes as much as one average American consumes, we will need 14 earths to be able to satisfy the 8 billion population. So what is happening here? Our measurement of our life is completely based on how much we consume, what we consume, and we are constantly consuming. where this thought came from the point that we are just constantly consuming. That's why in one of the in the second and third chapter of Karma Yoga, he talks about yajna, how much sacrifice is important. Sacrifice is a way of giving back, but we are constantly in the mode of consuming. So there are people who don't explore because we are always consuming. In the process of consume, only when you stop that, maybe you'll sit and think, been consuming too much. Let me sit and think, what is this? What is this process? What is this life? What is life about? All those things we will only sit and think if we kind of stop and pause in life. So he says there are people like this who are just engrossed so much, it's very difficult for them to get their heads up. And it goes to say that even such people, if they slowly move on to celebrate and worship celestial beings, yo yo yam yam tanum bhaktah shraddhaya architum ichhati, shraddhaya architum ichhati, which one? All, any form of celestial gods like Indra, Varuna, Vayu, or any of the natural gods, or the deities that are there. If you wish to engage with those deities for your satisfaction of your desire, Krishna says, it is still I. Tasya tasya chalam shraddham tam eva vidadhami aham. I am the one who makes it possible through them for you. Even if you are not engrossed in devotion to the Lord just for the love of the Lord or love of God, if you are not engaged in that kind of devotion, if you are engaged in kamya karma or engagement with prayers and rituals and going to temples and doing puja and all of that, even if that is for kamya, for your desire fulfillment, kamya purti, he says, it is me. It is me who is Narayana, who is the Lord, who is the Jagat Pita, who is Paramatma. It's through my enablement this also happens. It is just that we don't know it, we don't understand it. So this is like saying how a small child in our household, when the small child comes and asks for small toys, the parents know the toy is not permanent, and the parent knows that the toy is only going to give temporary joy to this child. As the child grows, the toy is not going to be of any use. They're going to throw the toy, useless. It will not be of any use. But still, the parent indulges and buys expensive toys for the child. Correct? The parent indulges and buys even expensive toys, knowing that maybe in 2 years' time, or maybe even in 1 year time, the toy will be of no use. A lot of people keep the toys of their child. ஒரு வயசுல இந்த பொம்மை விளையாடினான்னு சொல்லி atticல இருக்கும். Because at that time it was an expensive toy and you bought it and you don't have the heart to throw it. But the child has thrown it. So we still indulge. We indulge the child. Why? Because if you give it love and you give it care and you show it the right things, that it's, I'm there to care for you, I'm there to guide you, I'm there to give you what you want, then you can guide the child as it grows into indulging or engaging into higher things in life, things of much larger purpose. There is one thing that I always remember my father says: if you don't find love, or if your needs are not fulfilled in your household, you will always go seeking it outside. Many years ago, he said this. It is a very interesting thing, and I felt it was quite profound. If parents don't fulfill the small needs of the kids in the household, then the tendency that they'll either go to the neighbor, they'll go to some friend, or school they'll take it from somebody. And as they grow old, this tendency of looking for joy, fulfillment, pleasure on the outside will grow. And they'll not be content with what they get in their household, from their family, from their near ones. So the same idea, Krishna is saying that I allow them to engage because I know slowly I will then guide them and direct them in the right direction towards me. Okay. The next shloka, next verse, he says, Sataya Shraddhaya Yuktah Aradhanam Ihate. So such people who who engage or indulge in the worship of these these deities and these celestial beings for their fulfillment of for the fulfillment of their desires, I continue to engage them and they will get the benefits, because this is step by step. They're at least, see, from not believing or not engaging in any form of worship or prayer, now this person has come to a worshipful and a prayerful attitude, right? So that itself is a big step. So Bhagavan will encourage such an individual. The grace inside will encourage that individual, because now this person has moved to a prayerful attitude. He's willing to go to a temple. He's willing to bow down to something. He's till then he was arrogant and holding on, saying, I create the world. See, I create the world. If you have the understanding of Vedanta with that highest understanding, you say that, it's different. But with the arrogance of the ego, if you say that, then very soon the ways of the world will crack you down. And so this person now turns towards a prayerful mind and a prayerful attitude. When he does that, Bhagavan says, I am there to support this. And I am the one who allows these benefits that he gets. I am the one that I allow and make it happen for him. Antavattu phalam tesham tadbhavati alpamedhasam. So those who are of little understanding, they don't get it. They don't understand this. Right? Devan deva yajo yanti madbhakta yanti mam api. So those who pray to the lower, I wouldn't want to say lower, those who want to pray to these forms for their personal desires, just for the fulfillment of those desires, they will attain to those desires. They will be able to connect with those energy forms. But the one who comes to me, which means going to Krishna, comes to me in this context means going to Krishna. Going to Krishna for what? You never go to Krishna for your desires to be fulfilled. You would go to Krishna to drop all your desires. You'll go to Krishna only when your desire is Krishna alone. You'll go to Narayana or to Paramatma when you go, when you're seeking the highest, you will seek so that your desires, your vanity, your ego, your kama, krodha, lobha, moha, mada, matsarya, shadripu, all of those things drop. So with the desire to drop all this, if you go, you're going towards Krishna. And he says, such a devotee comes to me. And if you go with the desire of wanting kamya prapti, then you will go to those gods, you will be associated with those energies and those forms, and you will receive the benefits thereabout. Okay. The next one, he says, avyaktam vyaktimapannam manyante mam abuddhayah. So he says that now he's just trying to bring about the aspect of his avatara. Krishna as an avatara. So he says, those who think that I am this form, think that I was formless, avyakta, and now I have taken this form. And they think that when I become from vyakta to avyakta, I will disintegrate. Param bhavam ajanantah. But they don't know mama avyayam anuttamam, which means they think that I will perish when this form goes off. Say, I am imperishable. Avyayam anuttamam, which means this form that you see is essentially just like a ripple. See, this can be seen in multiple ways. When you go to the ocean, you see water in the ocean, you see ocean turning into waves, and then there is froth, bubbles, all of that comes out, right? Now a Dvaitin goes and looks at the ocean, and he says there is water, there's an ocean, there are waves, there is froth, there are bubbles. So he says there are bubbles, there is wave, and then there is the ocean. Advaitin. He says the ocean is Paramatma and these are all Jivatmas. The bubbles and the waves that come are Jivatma. The Vishishtadvaitin looks at the same ocean. He says yes, but the waves are part of the ocean. The waves arise in the ocean and they dissolve in the ocean. They arise in the ocean, they dissolve in the ocean. Advaitin goes and says, where is the ocean? Where are the waves? Where is the bubble? All I see is only water. Correct? Sarvam khalvidam brahma. He says, all that I see, sarvam khalu idam, sarvam idam brahman khalu. So that is what he sees. He says, everything is only water. You are giving it names. This is how an Advaitin sees. But is each one wrong? Each one is right in their own perception. And how do you want to associate with that? Right? So here he is saying, Krishna is saying, the people think that I have taken this form. I was not there. I was unmanifest. I manifested now. And at the end of it, I will not be present and everything will dissolve and I'll go into unmanifest. Says such people don't realize that this is always existing. It is Sanatana, eternal. Avyayam in this context cannot be destroyed. Akshara, Akshara Brahma. In fact, this BAPS group is there, no? Those who know of this, they built many temples. Swaminarayan group. They're called as BAPS. The AP stands for Akshara Purushottama. Akshara Purushottama. Akshara is this Purushottama that cannot be destroyed. Akshara. Akshara means Nakshayati. Nakshayate. Akshara does not, cannot be destroyed. That is Purushottama. That Purushottama. So he says, not many people understand. Abuddhayaha. Alpa Buddha, which is earlier one was, it said, Alpa Medhasam. Those who are of little understanding, they think it is like this. So you can perceive it whichever way. Even in the Buddhist context, in Buddhist context, you see, consciousness is a stream. The Buddhist philosophy says consciousness is nothing but a stream, and these occurrences are like things that just come out of the stream, and flashes in a stream. They come and go, 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 come and go. So you can see it that way. Say everything that exists here is only consciousness, and these things are either rising, falling down in consciousness, But what always exists is consciousness. He says, those who have little understanding understand that I come and go, but I don't come and go. I am that which is always existing. Now, this reminds me of that story of Ramana Maharshi and Papaji, Harilal Punja. I remember sharing this story once. Harilal Punja was very happy. He was as a small boy, he used to have visitations of Krishna. And then he somehow figured out, got to know of, and he was in Uttar Pradesh. He got to know from Lucknow. He came, he got to know of one Ramana Maharshi, who was a great saint. So he thought he'll come and visit him. So he was a young boy. He came and visited. Ramana asked him to stay there in the ashram and walk about in the Tiruvannamalai hills and all that. And he went, and then Ramana asked him, so how was your experience? He stayed there for a few days. And he said, it was very nice, Bhagwan. I had so many times Krishna came to me. He played with me. I spent a lot of time with him. It was very, very, very joyful experiences that I had. Then he asked, but Swamiji, I have one thing that is bothering me all the time, is that Krishna comes and but he goes away. So, and I don't know how to bring him back, right? And I don't want him to go away. I'm having so much fun, enjoy with him. And then Bhagavan Ramana tells him, okay, so Krishna comes, you see Krishna coming. You are having the experience of Krishna and you are having that time of fun and joy with him. And then you see Krishna going. And again, then Krishna, some other time, he again comes back. And then Krishna goes. So your focus is on the Krishna who is coming and Krishna who is going. Can you turn your attention towards the one who's watching this Krishna coming and going? Right? So don't look at that Krishna, look at the one who's seeing that Krishna coming and Krishna going. But somebody asks Ramana, Kadavul, if God comes in front of you, what will you ask? What will you say? He says, இந்த வரப்போகிற வேலையெல்லாம் வச்சுக்காது. Ramana says, don't play this game of coming and going with me. Right? Because his experiences of divinity all the time. So like that he says all the time. So it's not like I am coming and going. I am present all the time. Right? 25th, we'll just close with this one. नाहं प्रकाश सर्वस्य योगमाया समावृतः मूढ़ोऽयं नाभिजानाति लोको मामजम अव्ययम. So he says, this people don't realize this and understand this is because of my yoga maya. Mama maya duratyaya. There is another verse in which he mentioned this. My maya is unsurmountable. But you can surmount it with Shraddha and bhakti. There's another Shraddha and maybe you can look up that verse. It says, with faith, devotion, and perseverance, you can cross over this Maya. So here he says, you don't. A lot of people are not able to perceive this constant existence. Because they are not able to surmount this Maya. They are unable to surmount this Maya, and that is that is why I am not able to be perceived by everybody. I am not manifest to everyone because of this yoga maya. And those who don't have this recognition of this understanding, they don't know I am changeless. When he says I again, we have spoken about this at length. When he says I, he is in that state of complete absorption in consciousness. So you have to recognize that Krishna consciousness is within me. Right? So Shivakami is here. This a silly joke occurred to me. So Shivakami's son's name is Krishna. So she held Krishna consciousness in her womb for 9 months. So Krishna's consciousness that way is within us, and it is that changeless consciousness that is existing all the time. And that is what Krishna is trying to say through these verses. Okay. So we will pause here today. I have to take leave. Okay. So we will continue from 26th onwards next week on. Om कायेन वाचा मनसेन्द्रियैर्वा बुद्ध्यात्मना वा प्रकृते स्वभावात् करोमि यद्यत् सकलं परस्मै नारायणायेति समर्पयामि सदाशिवायेति समर्पयामि जगदम्बिकायै इति समर्पयामि सद्गुरुनाथायेति समर्पयामि हरि ओं तत्सद्गुरुभ्यो नमः. The important message in this one, in these few verses, is that whether we realize Krishna is there or not, whether we realize consciousness is there or not, whether we realize Ambal Devi is there or not, that is always there. So it is not incumbent on our realization of it. It is despite that. It is not existing, that consciousness is not operating with, not, it doesn't have any dependence on my recognition of it. It is existing despite my recognition or lack of recognition. So that is a very powerful idea. It's a very powerful idea. You know why? Because it's not all the time we think about our Ishta or Krishna, or we do Dhyanam on Brahman and all. We don't do that all the time. There are times when we do it, but there are times when we don't. Most of the times we don't. And then again, a thought comes, Ayyo, for so long I did not think about God, Krishna, my Ishta, whatever. But at that time, it is very powerful to think, even while I was not thinking, He was still present. Even when I was not paying attention to it, it was still there. That Sakshi, that presence was still there. This is a very powerful, uh, a powerful understanding, because every time we think we forgot, it's good to remind ourselves that it feels like it, but no, it was still there. It was still there. So what happens is it deepens every time. It deepens our ability to stay connected to that, right?
The powerful consciousness, right?
Yeah, true. We forget because she makes us forget, right? Yeah, we can blame it on her. We can blame it on her.
It's a silent witness.
Avasthatrayam, also Turiya, it's the Turiya state, which is always present. And it is not, which is what I'm saying, it is not dependent on any of our states of consciousness. It is despite the recognition of it or lack of recognition, it is there. Forgetfulness has happened over many lifetimes, and we are dehypnotizing. Like Swami Vivekananda says, the whole process of this journey is you're dehypnotizing yourself. Dehypnotizing from the hypnosis we are in. The hypnosis is what? That I am not that. The hypnosis is I am not that. The forgetfulness is the hypnosis. So right now the situation is the forgetfulness is a larger span of time, and the remembrance of it is smaller shots of memory. But if you start increasing this, the forgetfulness will become smaller shots, which means you're then getting onto the track of becoming more aware of the hypnosis. See, this very beautiful book. I don't know, I'm just extending the time. Sorry. There is a very beautiful book by one of Ramana's disciple called Annamalai Swami. And he says this, the book was called Last Freedom or something like that. It's not a very commonly found book, but very beautiful book. It is an interview with somebody in Tamil. Someone interviewed him, and that is translated into English. And this person, Annamalai Swami, he lived separately. He was with Ramana Maharshi and then went and lived separately for several years. And he went through this process of self-analysis constantly, because Bhagavan told, you're with me and a lot of things you have to explore on your own. So you go away from the ashram. He sent him out, asked him to set up his own kutir. He stayed there. And it describes how beautiful for him it was that every day this observing, who am I, he was observing that process. He describes it very beautifully. He says how he would slip out. So then he'll try to stay aware during the day, several hours he will try to stay aware, but there'll be several times or hours that will drop off. That awareness will drop off either during sleep or when he's doing something or something else happens. A stimulus comes from the outside, he'll slip off. But then he says slowly that reduced, and then after that it became seamless. He says after that there was a time when it's hard for us to understand logically, but then he says after that I didn't have to remind myself. That's a beautiful state, right? After that he says during that I had to remind myself that, oh no, I have to go back to this state of awareness. But then he said, right now I'm just aware. I don't have to remind myself. It's there. I can always sense that presence and awareness all the time. So the forgetfulness drops off. Anyways, so that's the beauty. Okay. Hari Om. Hari Om.
Hari Om, Sudha. So Nadwara
Hari Om.
Pichwai painting, is it?
Hari Om.
No. This is not Nathdwara Pichwai. This is just a wallpaper.
Okay.
Yeah.